This is a letter I wrote on June 10th, 2018, 2 days after Anthony Bourdain died. Dear Bourdain, I woke up for work as I usually do around 6:45 a.m. on Thursday. I, for the most part, check my phone for any late-night text banter my brothers might have sent me that I probably slept through. Thursday, I woke up to the usual missed messages from my brothers like most morning. Unlocking my phone with one eye partially open and the haziness of the lashes not fully opened, I read, Anthony Bourdain died. He killed himself. In a panic, I jumped to a seated position, fully aware of what I was checking for. I anticipated cussing my brother out for sending me such a fucked up message. I quickly Googled your name, and as I typed the first 4 letters of your name, Google auto-populated Anthony Bourdain, dead. I rummaged through multiples, not believing that you were gone, and above all else that you had taken your own life. Don't you know what you meant to me and many like me? You were the voice for the overworked, the underpaid, the underappreciated dishwasher, busser, runner, prep cook, line cook, sous chef, glorified sous chef. Many like me welcome the tough, carnage-sweeping life of a cook you described in your books. We jumped in head first, chasing those stories to carry as badges of honor that we too had seen the likes of Bigfoot or the Rhode Island motley crew you worked with. I wanted that life, and I'd do anything to get it. Your books presented themselves to me in 3 important times in my life. When I was 17 years old and academically weaseling my way through high school, I had no real ambitions of what I wanted to become besides playing baseball. Usually, I wouldn't blame the educational system for my less than stellar academic achievements. That being said, I also don't think it's the most responsible thing to do as a guidance counselor to advise someone to join the Navy or work their way up at McDonald's when I said I wanted to be a chef. This shriveled old bag of mothballs looked at me with her left eye dribbling down in silence. I replied, "Are those my only options? Well, I don't really see the need for you to attend school or waste federal aid for a trade you'll likely end up in anyway." So I hit the library to scroll through the internet. I searched back and forth between articles on bin Laden and chef videos. 9/11 had just happened a few months back, so I figured I'd research the guy I'd be chasing down with my inevitable fate in the military as draft chatter was going around. Stoic as I gazed at the lime green Apple computer, I came across an article that read, "Chef exposes the truth of the kitchen." Apparently, some burnt out, bitter nobody of a chef was exposing the restaurant industry in his new book he had just written. Up to this point, I never knew a chef personally, and I didn't know what it meant to be a real chef besides what I saw on television. A day passed, and I still couldn't get this book out of my head. Over the weekend, I asked my mom if she could drive me 3 towns over to the Barnes & Nobles and buy me a book. My mom bought me this book, Kitchen Confidentials. I read this book every single day in between class and baseball practice away from my friends and brothers. My friends were not the reading type. Their ideas of hobbies consisted of sneaking Bud Lights in after morning football practice and stoned out of their minds throughout the day. From January to May, I read this book, and as I flipped each page, slowly becoming one of your disciples. You broke down the worst in the industry. You explained how you dealt with drunks, drug users, drug pushers, semi-psychotics, sex addicts, outcasts, weirdos, freaks, geeks, convicts, immigrants, gangbangers, and the all-encompass industry vagabond workers. You broke down the necessary lingo to make it in the kitchen. Pinche pendejo, dickwad, asswipe, fuckface, and all other eloquent lingo a kitchen staff must know to survive. This was it. This is what I was meant to do. I was already surrounded by these people, and I was well versed in that lingo. My little town was filled with those people. Shit, most of my friends fit the ideal prerequisites to survive in the kitchen. The lingo was much too familiar for me, and for once I figured I had the upper hand at something. In that moment, I was set that I would work in the toughest kitchens, seek out the biggest piece of shit chefs to earn my bones, and I'd never complain. Your book was my blueprint of checklists that I needed to mark off. My goal was to one day look back at the years in my industry with badges of honor. Fuck my guidance counselor. You told me I was worthy of this career path as long as I busted my ass, never called out, and learned my craft. I'd be a chef. By now, I had gone through culinary school, staged at kitchens, worked for high-profile chefs, been cussed out, chewed up, and hands like burn victims. I was in it. I was in the flow of the world, and I had learned the craft. My career had landed me in Washington, D.C., and I was on the verge of getting married. By now, you were a household name. You were traveling the world. Around this time, older and wiser, I realized what this world was really like. For years, I romanticized the grit, pressure cooker grind of this field, and I believed I'd fall deeper in love with the craft, but the reality of it all was that I was just tired. Each day, a bit worse than the last, I'd wake up at 6 a.m. to drive to a train stop about 15 minutes away from my basement apartment. I'd then catch a train that took about 45 minutes to Metro Center, arriving at work around 8:30. Around this time, I picked up a book again to read on my commute to work. Now I was working at a seaside restaurant that sat over 600 tables where the ticket machine would vomit tickets late into the night. Reading your book this time around was hard on me. I felt like a fraud. I was falling out of love with the industry and was beyond burnt out. It was hard to read your book as I felt that I was disappointing you in some way. I had earned my bones in this field, but I felt like I hadn't done enough. Many of my fellow chef friends in DC were blowing their noses bloody every single night. Drinking and cigarettes was the furthest I took it, but I didn't judge my comrades for their choices to highly sedate themselves on a daily basis. Hey man, anything to get you to show up, put your head down, and get the job done. If I need something perfectly seasoned, temped, and ready for pickup, who am I to judge? My guys were loyal, and they knew I wouldn't judge them. They did as I asked, when I asked. This was taking a toll on me, seeing my guys kill themselves over nothing, really. We worked our asses off many times for people that didn't really appreciate what was presented to them. The romance of being a chef was wearing off on me, and I was conflicted because I had nothing else but food. I'd read your book thinking to myself that I was betraying my guys and many cooks before me with my thoughts of leaving the field. In culinary school, one of my chefs told us, "You will likely end up single or divorced as a chef." The days were long. There's nothing more demoralizing than working a 16-hour shift, sprinting to the train stop only to see your train depart as you get to the platform, 25 minutes for the next train. It becomes an out-of-body experience at that point. You do anything to try to convince yourself that God isn't deliberately fucking with you. Eventually, the train would arrive. I'd find an empty seat and I'd melt into the chair, my chef bag falling off me like butter sliding off pancakes. There's a certain demographic that occupy these seats listed late at night. Checkered pants, tattered white tees with grease stains, and rows of black non-slip shoes line the train. Faces of these men and women mirrored mine, and we'd nod at each other with respect, much like runners do as they pass each other on a run. We all knew each other without actually having met. I missed my wife, I missed my family, and I missed my friends. Shit, I really missed sleeping at night. Things were changing, and I had to figure out if I was staying or leaving. Ironically enough, I was at the "So You Want to Be a Chef, a Commencement Address" chapter of your book. The very first rule you listed was this: be fully committed. Don't be a fence sitter or a waffler. If you're going to be a chef someday, be sure about it. Single-minded in your determination to achieve victory at all costs. If you think you might find yourself standing in a cellar prep kitchen one day after tureening 200 potatoes, wondering if you've made the right move, or some busy night on a grill station find yourself doubting the wisdom of your chosen path, then you will be a liability to yourself and others. You are, for all intents and purposes, entering the military. Be ready to follow orders, give orders when necessary, and live with that outcome of those orders without complaint. Be ready to lead, follow, or get out of the way. I knew it was time. I had given it my all, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I wondered what you'd say to me in that moment. I'd like to think that you'd say, "Hey man, you fucking did it. All of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. You learned a lot, made your bones in this world. You were part of one of the last graduating classes of true old school chefs. You didn't join the Navy or work in McDonald's. Shit man, you ran multiple kitchens in big cities. You were good enough for the bigs. Look at those hands, calloused, cut, bubbled up. There's your trophy. That's the fucking glory, man. Every chef has an expiration date to them, sooner or later. You didn't end up an alcoholic or face down in a ditch like most other guys before us. You were honest. You worked hard. You never called off. You never stole or beat your wife along the way. I think you fared out well, my friend." This time around, I didn't want to read your book. I wanted to hear it from you. I wanted to hear you read it. I'm truly happy where I'm at now, and I don't think this would happen if I wasn't a chef. My attention to detail, the ability of not allowing excuses, working long hours, and calling bullshit when a chef tries to pull something by me comes directly from being a chef. I thought you were happy too. I saw your success and thought you had made it. I never met you, and it's hard for people to understand why I'm taking your loss so hard. I'm not saying you were the only inspiration for me wanting to be a chef, but you were the most transparent of them all. Somehow, I believe you can read this letter I'm writing you. Thanks for the advice, Flaco. You're one of the great ones. I don't hate cooking anymore. I love to cook for my friends and my family. I enjoy it again like I did in the beginning. I'm over the heartbreak this industry that you and I love so much gave us. I'm guessing I'll move past this. 86 Bourdain.